day.
Eagle
and
nests.
I haven't heard any
Right there,
eaglets.
the middle.
Oh, what the?
There's a big one.
We're looking at an eagle's nest.
Eagle's nest?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when the mom gets, when they get too big, she just boots them right out.
Yep, that's it. Boy, I tell you, I get on Explorer. Folks, you want to go by us here? Yeah, we just got some folks here.
Yeah, right there.
You're taking a picture or something.
I get on explore.org a lot, and I've been watching in Decorah, Iowa, the eagle nest there, and the babies have been, babies, and siblings, talk about sibling rivalry, and it's, picking at each other, and of course it's survival.
Right,
It is survival.
Yeah, it's fine. Only the strong survive.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Exactly.
Is that a bald
Anybody
eagle?
see it?
Bald eagle, right?
Yeah, bald eagle.
Bald eagle.
Yeah, and here in Southeast Alaska, you've got a nest for about every mile, and they're close to the water, so that for a good food source.
To get the fish.
Right. And last year we did hear chatter with the eaglets. I never got to see them fledge at all. This year I haven't heard anything yet. So I'm hoping. Now sometimes eagles will have more than one nest in a territory, and it's because if the nest gets infested with some kind of like a bug or a nasty thing, and they just don't use it and let it air out or whatever, kill it off, and they'll use another nest, So I'm not sure what's happening here. There's right around 4 nests here in the park. Yeah. One I've never been able to find at all. My friend Laura that made the Sea Star for me, she told me about it, but it's down in that area that we're going to walk, but never have seen it. Yeah.
Wow.
You can see that bush right there. This is the salmonberry bush, the one where the green leaves are just now starting to come out. The salmonberries come out at the end of June, and they look like a raspberry, but they're larger, and they get bright red, orange, or yellow when they're ripe to eat. It's not really about the color, it's about the size of the berry. That indicates that it's ready to be picked here. So yeah, locals we love.
And are they sweet?
They're not. I mean, give me a raspberry. I know they tend to be a little on the tart side. I love raspberries. This tends to be a little bit on the tart side too. And I love huckleberries here. The huckleberries and blueberries around here have a little extra protein in them. My husband says it doesn't bother him at all, but it does me. And that temperate rainforest starts out at the, kind of the Oregon, California border, and then runs up through Oregon, Washington, Southeast Alaska, and on up to Kodiak. 3 characteristics of a temperate rainforest: rarity of fire, the evergreenness, and then what they call a complex structure. And all that means, when you're standing here looking, you see a lot of gaps between the trees. But say we were going to go hiking up one of these mountains, stop and look at a patch in the forest, you would see different ages and stages of tree growth and a very, very dense understory. And the understory plants in the Tongass are actually berry bushes. The blueberry, huckleberry, and salmonberries, all edible. Yeah, they're quite the berry collectors here. Now we have very little soil here. Maybe 5 feet or so of soil. So our trees tend to be what we call buttress based. Large at the base, and they have to send their roots fanning out. Now what shapes the forest in Oregon and Washington, right up to Vancouver Island, is the lower 48 is fire. Well, where you're all from is fire's the change agent down there. Unfortunately, California, I'm so sorry about that. But up here, it is wind. And windstorms come through, snap tops off trees, or you saw, knock a tree down. And then that's when they become what we call the nurse log. All these trees that you see that look just like this, they started out on a down log that's totally decomposed into the soil, and this is what you have left. It's unusual that we would get winds of 76 mile an hour. Normally in the summertime, maybe 5, 10, 15 mile an hour winds, and in the wintertime, okay, it can gust maybe 30, 40, but that's it. That was quite the storm at 76. I thought there would be more damage in here than there really was, or more landslides, I guess. Now, I didn't mention the two major tree species that we have are Sitka spruce and western hemlock. 70% of the forest is actually the western hemlock, which is these trees right here. Sitka spruce, those two trees right there, make up about 30% of the forest. And you can identify them because it looks like flakes of bark a little bit here. Any questions? All right, now just fire away if you do, okay? Now, I would warn you too, because I spent the last 2 weeks kind of coming through here and picking up limbs. But the various windstorms that we've had, there's some branches that you can see kind of picked off here that have been on the trail. Just watch out for that, because I did trip last week.
Ito yung Sitka Mountains. Yung kanina, yun ang Sitka National Park. At ito yung lake nila from Indian River na maraming mga salmon. Then going to the sea. Ito yung pinakamaganda dito. Yan. Na-preserve nila kaya maganda at malinis yung bukid nila. Yan. May mga wild ducks. Tsaka yung bukid na yan puti. Yun ang snow. May snow. Saka isa din dito. May snow din. Yan. Alis na tayo kasi may iwan na tayo.
Into Crescent Harbor. Crescent Harbor. How far is that?
Ito yung harbor nila. May mga maliliit na mga island. Magagandang bahay doon. Kita mo. Dami ding wildlife. Siguro dito yung otter. Tsaka ito yung napakaganda bukid nila. Yan. Maganda. Ito. Yan. Daming mga wild ducks. Ibang klase yung mga wild ducks nila dito. Kulay puti. Yan. May mga islands din dito. Ito pa rin ito sa Sitka, Alaska. Makikita mo diyan. Yan. Wild ducks. Iba din yung kulay ng wild ducks dito.
Do you want me to take a picture?
Tsaka yan.
Oh, you can take a picture of us too.
Got it.
Ito yung Sitka, Alaska. Ito yung magandang view na makukuha natin dito. Yan, may mga village. Then yan. At saka kikita mo yung dagat. Napaka ganda tingnan. At saka mga wildlife nila. Kasi pinabayaan nila yung mga wildlife. Kaya hindi nila hinuhuli. Kaya daming ibon dito. Marami ding isda dyan. Kaya ayan, ganda tingnan. Ayan, ito yung Sitka, Alaska. Ayan.
It's important to recognize who has lived here forever. You know, for thousands and thousands of years, the indigenous people were the Tlingit and the Haida. The Tlingit lived in the northern part of southeast Alaska, and the Haida lived in the southern part of southeast Alaska. So the Kasaysayan clan made Sitka their home. The word that they had for Sitka was, I got to spell it first, Sheetka. Sitka, Shiatica, and the word they had for Baranof Island was Shee, S-H-E-E. That was the name of the island, and Shiatica meant on the outside of Shee. So the Russians came here in 1741. That's the year that they claimed the land, and it was Alexander Chirikov and Vitus Bering. They were supposed to stay together, but because of bad weather, they got separated. Chirikov ended up kind of right around the Sitka area, a little bit north, saw the land, claimed it, and then needed fresh water. He sent a boat in to get fresh water, and the boat didn't come back. Launched the second boat, and that boat didn't come back. And then out comes a canoe. They're not really sure if the native people are friendly or not. And so they just pull anchor and then they just leave. Now, and history says no one knows for certain, if the natives had killed them, or maybe it was like a tide, rip tide or something like that. I mean, who knows, what happened to them. But all of them, none of them survived at all. So now he knows somebody else is living here, but he's claimed the land. So Vitus Bering is further north, sees the land, claims it, and then he gets shipwrecked. And Bering and half his men die. But they don't die of the shipwreck, they die of scurvy. That old, nasty sailor's disease. Your chief boat. Well, actually, no, I'm going to get my thing in here. I've got something in here to show. Show and tell, but thank you. Thanks. This is, anyway, so what happened was, those early Russian fronters, Bering's, after the survivors, they found sea otter. They were getting sea otter. And they didn't have a clue what a sea otter was or what it was worth until the next year. They managed to get scraps of wood together, it's in here somewhere, scraps of wood together from the shipwreck, made a boat of sorts, and managed to make it home. They also took fox and seal, but history says it was right around 200 to 250 of the sea otter pelts. I don't want to offend anybody. I have a sea otter pelt to pass around. This is my good friend Susan Stanford. I think there's a look here. So cool.
Do you want me to help? Here.
Rip it open.
Here, don't do that. I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So what happened was, once they made it home, thank you, it was the Chinese hunters that saw this pelt and wanted more. Oh no, I was telling you about Susan Stanford. Susan Stanford, very good friend. She can't stand weather like this. And so she was over a 50-year resident of Alaska, spent the last probably 20 years here in Sitka, and finally moved. Her husband died in a boating accident, and then she had a B&B, but she moved because she suffered from SAD, S-A-D-D, a seasonal affective disorder. Days like this, I didn't realize it drove her crazy about. And so anyway, so she gave this to me. She had this and she wanted me to be able to share it with my tours. And this is not the best example of a sea otter pelt, but it kind of gives you an idea. The early Russian fur hunters that made their way to the Aleutian Islands. Does everybody know where the Aleutians are? Okay. From Kamchatka Peninsula to Attu, which is the last island in the Aleutians, it's right around 1,500 miles. And that's the way those hunters actually had to come. Here, can we come in this way just a little bit here? Broadcasting the whole. And so anyway, I'm going to turn. But sea otter, the Chinese wanted it not to eat them, but they wanted the fur for trims on hats and coats. They called it soft gold. It is a million hairs per square inch. Oh, wow. And that's what they wanted the sea otter fur for. And so that's what started the movement of the Russians coming over here to Alaska. When they got to the Aleutians, they realized they didn't know how to hunt them. They weren't very skilled. And who were? The natives, the Aleuts in the Aleutian Islands. Very, very skilled. And their secret was a bidarka. And a bidarka is a Russian word meaning a little skin canoe. And that's what they would, a little skin, a bidarka is like a canoe. Basically, it means little skin canoe. That's what bidarka. It's a Russian word. And that's what they would use to get the sea otter with. Well, those poor Aleut people, they had never seen white men before. They didn't have guns, and they basically were turned into slave labor. They were killed, they kidnapped families, and they forced the Aleuts into slave labor. So fast forward 50-some years, and you've got Alexander Baranov coming on the scene. And he arrives in Kodiak, and when he gets there, he sees that there are about 4 Russian fur companies that are up and running. Nothing to do with the government back then. It was just something, these were businessmen that were trying to make a huge profit, from the sea otters. So he knew, Baranov knew that they were going to overhunt the sea otter in Kodiak, just like they had in the Aleutian Islands. So it was imperative. I mean, the name of the game back then was this fur. This was like the gold back then. So that's what prompted Brana to come down here. He heard a rumor that the American and the British were down here trading with the Tlingit for the furs. And he wanted to find out if that was true or not. But he also kind of wanted to make a sub-empire, you know, for